Good evening, everyone. Tonight's discussion will be filled with some wonderful pointers and ideas that might assist you to become an active driver of your career. The road to success is not a comfortable road, but a road filled with choices, regrets, and missed opportunities unless you become great at navigating too. You will need to get your toolbox ready, be self-aware, establish a network of support, but I think most importantly, you must know where you want to go and you must know your worth. Tonight, Thabile, Murendeni, Makhado, and Shareen, all of whom will be introduced more formally to you, will share their lived experiences. I want to thank the panel for their time, the mentorship pillar of WIMSA for arranging this open session, and I would like to warmly welcome each and every one of you for taking from your personal time to join us. Welcome to the driver's seat of your career, where you have to be bold, be brave, and be authentically you to grow and find your definition of success. I hope you enjoy the session, and I'm sure that you'll find it very informative. I shall give you over to Humbulani and Briony now.
Maria, thank you so much. What a wonderful way to be welcomed and to be introduced, and very pleased to have you as our Deputy Chair of Women in Mining South Africa to warmly welcome us from the dark with your halo. Everybody that is here, it's lovely to have you here. My name is Briony Liber. I partner with Women in Mining South Africa to run the mentoring program. And I am here with my co-host Humbulani, who is a past mentee and a current WIMSA Mentoring Committee member. And we have several different guests as part of our panel. But I think before we do that, I just want to encourage everybody to say hi in the chat. I want to let you know that we are recording this session. So if you struggle with hearing what we're saying, if you disappear because of load shedding, if you have to leave for any particular reason, or you know that there are people who will benefit from the session and they aren't on this evening, this is being recorded. It's going to be posted onto WIMSA's YouTube channel tomorrow, so it will be available to everybody. Whether you're here live, welcome, or you are watching the recording, welcome. It's wonderful to have you here. Humbulani, I wonder if you want to say a few words and then we can introduce our panelists.
Thank you so much, Briony. Welcome to our guests. Welcome to everybody that is here. Let it be a fun-filled evening, a fun-filled session. So make it a point that you are engaging into this session, everyone, and feel free to engage openly. So feel welcome. Let's have a fun evening. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Murendeni. So as Maria said, we are talking about taking ownership of our careers, and I can't think of four better people to have as our panel in this discussion, because these are four women that I know to be taking absolute ownership of their careers. They are in the driver's seat of their careers. They are doing amazing things, and I want to start by introducing Pheko. 𝗵𝗵, maybe you can come on video. I know 𝗵𝗵 from having been a previous mentee on the Women in Mining Mentoring Program. She was part of the mentoring committee last year. She is a multi-award winning, multi-award nominated woman, and she is driving her career strongly. And 𝗵𝗵 will introduce herself just now when I've done a quick round of introductions. I also want to introduce Shareen, who I have been stalking on LinkedIn for the last couple of years. And every single time I see Shareen's face coming up on LinkedIn, it's because she's posting yet another position that she has taken on. Shareen, I am so inspired by what you do, having met you a few times in person, but also watching you closely on LinkedIn. I know that you are someone who is catapulting in her career and is really somebody that's got a lot of wisdom to share with our participants here today. So thank you for making time. I know you're in a new position and you've got a lot on your plate, and I really appreciate you being here with us today. Then Thabile. Thabile is the Managing Director of one of our sponsors, 𝗕𝗵𝗶 Group. Thabile, it's lovely to have you on this session. I have known you for the last 5 years, and I was really excited when Humbulani said that she'd managed to secure you for today. And I know you were doing a lot in your career and balancing all sorts of different things. So looking forward to us learning from you. And then our final panelist is Murendeni, and I was looking at Murendeni's name 5 seconds ago, and now she's disappeared. So I think she might have dropped off for a moment. But Murendeni is one of our WIMSA committee members. She leads the membership portfolio. She is also doing some great things in her career, and hopefully when she comes back, she is going to share some of her wisdom with us as well. Okay, enough from me. Humbulani, I wonder if you want to ask your first question of the panelists and maybe make it an opening question so that we can get to know our panelists before we dive into the conversation.
Thank you so much. I'm trying to look for Murendeni. Do we know if she is in as yet here?
We'll find her.
Yes, she is in. She's in.
Oh, fantastic. Yay, Murendeni, welcome.
Welcome,
Thank
Murendeni.
you.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm just
maybe
struggling with, it's load shedding, so I had to log in with my phone. So probably the name appearing there, I'm not sure which name is appearing now.
You are here as Rendi.
Oh, yes, but I'm here. We can continue.
Thank you so much, Murendeni, for being with us, and welcome to all our panelists. We're very honored to have you here. We can't wait to learn a lot from you. Of course, the topic of today, it's all about managing our career like a business, knowing how to manage our career. And we are more interested to know more about how do we manage our career like a business? How did we navigate from where we currently are to be better people? So maybe if I can start off as part of an introduction, maybe PT, with you, can you take us through a background on where you started off to be where you are? What are some of the mistakes that you made through while you were growing through your career, PT?
Thank you, Humbulani. It's a pleasure to be here tonight and to share my journey. So I'm currently a production section manager. I started my career as a miner underground, and I work in the coal mines. So I started my career as a miner underground, went up the ranks from miner to shift boss, mine overseer, and then moved out of underground, went to open cast mines, and I'm currently now a production manager there. So it's been quite a journey. As we know, mining industry is a male-dominated industry, and one has to be quite firm and strict in order for you to actually make your way up and then to be respected. So one of the challenges that I faced was basically just to know and learn who you are, what kind of leadership you want to put forward as who you are, and sort of find your way and your path in the industry. And you end up learning things from different people, some good, some not so good, some trades that do not necessarily portray who you are. You end up learning the right things and the wrong things along the way. And through that process, you also have to then learn what makes who you are, and what do you have to unlearn, and what is it that you're going to build onto in order for you to become the manager or the leader that you want to be. And sometimes we pick up traits that do not define us, of who we are, and we then have to unlearn it. And it's one of the things that I also had to go through. You know, you might have a supervisor that treats you a certain way, and somehow you end up believing that that's how a leader is supposed to be. And if you don't necessarily agree, if it doesn't resonate with who you are, it's something that you have to then identify and then unlearn. And that's something that I had to go through in order for me to sort of get to where I am now, and knowing that this is the kind of leader that I would want to be, is learn and unlearn the things that do not resonate with who and what I want to be. Yeah,
I can imagine, Pity, and not all of us know a lot about unlearning what we have learned as we're growing up, and it will be interesting to know how to navigate your way forward, and what roles does one have to take into unlearning and learning. Maybe if we carry on to Murendeni, she can tell us different approaches that she has taken to navigating her way forward, and what role she has taken that to be where she is currently. What are the specific steps that she has taken?
Hi, everyone. Apologies for not having video. As I mentioned, I'm using my phone. But from my side, just in terms of the steps I had to take in order to move forward, was to go beyond just the technical expertise. There's a lot of people who, like me, have environmental management degrees. That's quite a common degree that most people have. A lot of people do have it up till honors level, even till master's level. So for me, in order to get ahead, I had to do more than just be a technical expert, because by being a technical expert alone, I couldn't stand out from the crowd. So I had to push myself further. I had to make sure that I network, and also joining Women in Mining was one of the ways wherein I wanted to network and put myself out there, show that I'm more than just a technical expert. And the other thing was also just making sure that within the organization, I start building close relationships, so that I start having a sponsor, so that in rooms wherein I'm not there, where decisions are being made, there are people who already know me. There are people who already have that relationship with me, who can therefore speak on my behalf. And I think for me, that's what has worked in order to pull me through and to put me in a position where I am right now.
I'm sure Briony will take you back so you can get people to understand which position is it that you're talking about. Where did you move from, and where are you currently?
So to start off, I started off as an, if I were to go way back, I started off as an environmental intern. From there, I was working with a consulting company. I spent a period of 11 months doing my internship. And from the internship, I then joined the mining industry. I joined through Anglo-American Platinum. I worked for Anglo-American Platinum as an environmental assistant, training to become an environmental officer. I therefore left the mining industry. I went into paper and pulp making, wherein I joined SAPI Southern Africa as an environmental and risk superintendent. I spent 2 years out of the mining industry, and I came back to the mining industry to join Impala Platinum, the Marula mine, which is based in Limpopo. So I started off there as an environmental superintendent for a period of 9 months. After the 9 months, I was then promoted to environmental manager. So that's a position that I served for a period of 3 years. And just end of last year, I then got promoted to our corporate office as a corporate water specialist. So that
I want to ask a question there.
Yes.
Murendeni, so often when you go through a transition, that's where you learn the most about yourself. And that's where you have to unlearn things that you've maybe learnt along the way, and you have to learn new things. And Mphithi talked a little bit about unlearning and having to learn new things, and I wonder if you can maybe pick up on that and share a little bit with us about something that you've had to unlearn in a transition point in your career so that you could be successful in the next stage of your career.
I think one thing that I had to unlearn, and you realize that with learning and unlearning, with the different phases and the different promotions, each one of them comes with an aspect you have to leave behind and an aspect you have to adopt. So when I rejoined the mining industry, like I mentioned, I rejoined as an environmental superintendent, and then I got promoted to a managerial position wherein there were things that I had to leave behind now. From being a superintendent to being a manager, you get a larger team as well that you need to manage. You get certain responsibilities. So that's when now you start having to think differently. You start having to know there's, for example, when you get into a managerial position, it's no longer about pleasing everyone. And what I always told my team is, if everybody likes you, there's an issue. And if everybody dislikes you, there's also an issue. There needs to be a balance of people who like you and people who dislike you. Then you know for a fact that you're doing something right. So that's something that I had to learn, that at a managerial position, you don't have to please everybody. Not everybody is gonna like you, because when you do things right, when you do what needs to be done, there are certain people who are not going to be happy about it. And I think for most, that has been the downfall, when you try to get everybody on your side, which cannot be the case. So that's when now you need to start noticing, like, I think, Briony, you always say, it's run your career like a business. That's when you now to start realizing who's your target market. Focus on your target market. There are certain people who you need to please, people who monitor your KPIs, the team directly under you. Know your target market, know who your stakeholders are, keep those ones satisfied. And everybody else, if they're happy, it's fine. If they're not, focus on the key people who actually have an impact or influence on your final output. And that's when you actually start succeeding.
Oh, Murendeni, that is such a powerful point that you've made. And it's one that we talk about in the mentoring group a lot. Don't be nice, aim to be respected. The moment you start aiming to be nice, you have a problem. Respect is far more important than being nice. And I think the second point, and this goes for almost everything in your career, if you're trying to please everybody, you're going to end up pleasing nobody at all. So be strategic about who it is that you're aiming to please and focus on that. And yeah, so I just wanted to emphasize those, because I think those are two very important points. And Shareen, I've seen you nodding, so maybe you want to add in something that relates to this around kind of choosing who you please, choosing how you show up, and the importance of making sure that you're respected rather than aiming to be kind of liked by everybody. Shareen, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, no, that's fine. Yes, I actually resonate with what Randy said about the whole, when you take in charge of your career. So I come from an environment, an underground mine environment, and it's known not to be as friendly to us, right? So me as a young Black female in mining, right, you enter an environment where there's just a lot of men, it's underground. One, they speak a different language from me, you know, so I have a lot to learn. I need to learn the language, I need to fit in. So taking charge of your career simply was just me deciding that, listen, I'm gonna make this work. I'm gonna make this work for me. And that was to actually start learning what these people are about, you know. So they became very welcoming to me, and then I built from that. Because I worked with over 10 teams throughout my mining and ship bossing seasons. I worked with a lot of teams, meaning I had to learn each and every person in that specific team, right? Because in mining, the team can actually make or break you. So the way a perception of you can actually determine your next move, you know? If a team doesn't like you, unfortunately, it's gonna be difficult for you to actually go to the next step, because these are the people that needs to root for you. These are the people that will actually tell your boss that, listen, Shareen is ready to be a shift boss. Can she be our shift boss? So if you don't have anyone who's gonna speak for you in this environment, it's gonna be very difficult. So that's why when you enter a mining environment, you need to actually know what you really want and know what is it that I'm gonna do to get there. So for me, it was just a matter of understanding people and understanding what mining was about. So one thing I always said is that if you don't love mining, your journey in it is going to be very miserable. So you need to learn to love it so that you can live it. Yeah, that's just it from me, Briony.
Yeah, it's, you know, what you've talked about there is about making sure that you have a brand that people like to be around, that the experience that you create for people is one that people kind of gravitate towards and choose to be with, as opposed to going, oh, well, I have to work with this person, but I only work with them because I have to, not because I choose to. And I think this is such an important point that sometimes we forget. We are all a brand. We are all trying to sell ourselves to other people. And when we make the experience of working with us an enjoyable experience, and one where we know we are credible and people respect us, it's so much easier to take the next step in your career. Shareen, thank you for that. Thabile, you moved out of being an employee and into being an employer. And so you've kind of been on both sides of managing your career like a business and now managing your business like a business. And I was reading something the other day that said the best employees that you want are those who build their career like a business within your business. And so I wanted to get your take on, firstly, how you've built your career like a business, and secondly, what you look for as an employer in others. So that you know that you're kind of getting the right people for your business.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you, Briony and Humbulani, for having me. So how I've managed my career, if I look back, is really just setting goals for myself. I think that has been the most important. Right at the beginning, you know, sort of defining where you want to go. That is critical because, you know, things will happen as you're navigating, things will come up. And if you don't have something that's grounding you and something that's reminding you of where it is that you want to go, you can easily get sidetracked and veer off where it is that you're trying to get to. So setting goals for yourself is extremely critical. For me, you know, I even take it a step further where I visualize those goals. So I literally have an actual object that I can see, just to remind myself of where it is that I'm going and where it is that I want to get to. Being authentic, I learned that very early on in my career, that it's important to show up as yourself, to be yourself in what you do. You know, you don't want to get to a point where you are comparing yourself with other people. And that happened a lot at the beginning of my career while I was a graduate, where, you know, you compare yourself to where your peers are, people that you studied with, and you use that as a gauge to determine whether, you know, you're headed in the right direction or not. And if you just go back to being authentic, you realize that gosh, I may be comparing myself to someone who's not even on the same journey as me. Our destinations are not the same. So yes, it's important to remain yourself. And then I think the other really important thing, especially being in the mining industry. So yes, when I was an employee in the mining industry. As an employer, our clients are the mining industry. So I'm still very much a part of the mining industry. And what is important, especially as a female, a Black female, and I think Shareen touched on it a bit as well, is you need to be bold. You have to be bold. You have to embody boldness. You have to embody courage in order to steer your career and for your career to progress forward. I don't think you have a choice about that one. Then the second part of your question, so what do I look for in people that we employ as an organization? Very much aligned to our organization's values, which are very much aligned to the values that myself and my business partner, 𝗪𝗠𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗔 So yeah, someone who's authentic is very important. You know, you look for someone who's driven, someone who's motivated. You know, an employee-employer relationship is a transaction. You know, the employer gets value, the employee gets value. And it's important that, you know, the people that we bring into our business are people who are highly motivated, because then that tells you that this person is going to add real value to your organization. And yeah, people who are just a culture fit again, in terms of someone who, like you were saying, someone who, you know, when they show up, you see a brand, they represent a brand, and it's a brand that you're drawn to. So that's very important. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Thabile. I think I'm struck by what you said when you started talking, that setting goals is crucial, is important. And of course, when you set goals, you expect to achieve those goals. Along the way, I'm sure there are some of the things that went wrong, that did not go your way. So what were the lessons that you learned throughout the process? What were some of the things that you wish you knew before you started throughout your career that you know today?
The biggest thing when it comes to things not going your way that I learned is, you know, as those setbacks are temporary, and the quicker you realize that they are temporary, the sooner you can get back to where you needed to go, where you were going. So it's important to not dwell on setbacks. Of course, we're human beings, we are emotional. So, you know, something that doesn't go your way will evoke a certain emotion within you. Allow yourself to feel it, but set a time limit. You know, at some point you need to just get over it and get back on the path that you are on. So it's very important that you see setbacks as temporary. You feel the emotion, but then you very quickly dust yourself off again and continue.
Thanks, that's a great one, Thabile. And one thing you said, we should not dwell too much into the mistakes. We need to move forward, to get to moving. So I'm interested, maybe let me pass this one to Phithi, to you as well. As Thabile said, we do not sit back and get set back on our mistakes, we move forward. So Phithi, looking back at your career, what were some of the things that you wish you did better, and what are the key learnings that we could learn from those things where you were not set back, you moved forward, and you are here today?
Thanks, Humbulani. I think one of the things that I wish I had done better is having a mentor earlier on in my career, I think very early on in my career, I was still a little bit hesitant in having a mentor. I sort of believed I can do this on my own. And I later learned the value of mentorship and the value of having someone who roots for you, you know, a sponsor. And it's something that I wish that I had adopted earlier on in my career, because I've seen the results of having a mentor later on, when I actually intentionally went out to get a mentor and intentionally put my goals ahead and mentioned that to my mentor and mentioned that to my sponsor in terms of what is it that I want to achieve. And having a mentor that is aligned with what it is that I wanted to achieve, I've seen the results, and I only believe that I could have maybe benefited it more if I had started earlier in my career. But the moment you start, it's never too late. The moment you start doing what benefits you, it immediately yields the results. You know, it's never too late to start doing what you could have started some time ago. So yeah, so I think definitely having a mentor earlier on would have assisted me better, but I eventually got one, and I think it has helped a great lot.
I like what you said about it's never too late, because I think so often we get caught up in this idea that I've left it too late, there's no point in trying now. And maybe we can pick up on that with Shareen. What's something that you wish you'd done earlier? What's something that you wish you'd unlearned earlier? A question that maybe you wish you'd asked earlier, that if you'd known with hindsight, you would have asked at the time?
I think I agree what Pity said as well. Né? So for me, I think, what is a mentor? You know, I think the definition of a mentor for us young graduates when we go to the mining industry, it becomes that the mentor is your manager, right? Little did we know that a mentor, my mentor as a mining engineer, can be an accountant. You get it? So I think the definition of a mentor struck us so hard that we fell into a system that said the person you're reporting to, who you're reporting to, becomes your mentor. So I think through that, so that's why at the end of the day, you become mining orientated, because that's all you know. You know, when you're reporting to, maybe I wanted to be a mine player and I wanted to be a rock engineer, but because it was not open for me to actually be a rock engineer or anything else, I was reporting to a mine manager who wanted me to get my blasting, who wanted me to get the tons out. So I think after graduating, or even in varsity, you know, getting a mentor would be best, right? So for me, that's one thing that I wish could have been defined to me earlier in my career, right? Because I became so stuck in this thing that this is all I know, right? There was nothing else. There was no one to say, hey, this is what you can do, this is what you cannot do. But rather, there was someone always telling me that, listen, you need to mine. After mining, you're going to become a shift boss. Actually, you are ready now to do a mine overseas ticket. So I followed that route because this is all I know, right? So if we can be open to, as young mining graduate, be open to choosing mentors in other fields, could have been great for me, right? I'm not saying I'm not happy where I am now. I am happy, but I feel like I could have added so much value somewhere else. Right, so that's just for me.
Yeah, so there's a couple things that have come out of that, out of what you've said, Shareen. And the first one for me is that getting exposure to different parts of the business is really important, because if you only get exposure to the one area that you work in, you might be missing out on a huge amount of things. And as you go further on in your career, actually understanding all the different working parts of a business and building your acumen becomes important. So that's one thing I want to pick up on there. And then I think the other thing that I just wanted to pick up is how we always seem to kind of when we're reflecting on our careers and we're saying, I wish I could have done that differently, somehow we always seem to go, oh, but that doesn't mean I'm not happy with where I am right now. As if kind of reflecting and thinking might be a bad thing. And what I really want to encourage in these panel discussions is it's okay to reflect. It's okay to be happy with where you are, but still wonder different parallel lives that you could have had, and look at ways of kind of adopting elements of those different parallel lives into where you are now, and maybe pivoting when you want to. There's nothing wrong with making changes. Valentia, you've had your hand up twice, and I'm just wondering if there's a question that you want to ask or a comment that you want to make.
Sorry, Brownie. I just wanted, if it's okay, I just wanted to take it a step back, because there's something that Thabile mentioned, and it really just, it really hit me. And when you spoke about authenticity, being authentic, I was like, in the recent years of my career, that's been so important to me. But perhaps a question that you can share with, or some advice you can share with us and a lot of the ladies. I'm not sure if you guys have also experienced this, but when you first enter the mining industry, you understand that it's a different industry, it's a different culture. And it's almost like you have to also manage perceptions. You don't really want to be, you know, that girly girl, because you also want to be taken seriously. And that's what we've spoken about, you know, respect. So Thabile, if you wouldn't mind just advising us, how do we transition from managing perceptions to being authentic? What advice would you give us to actually grasp that, grasp finding our voice, grasp being authentic in this industry?
So, you know, you mentioned something that I think, or actually I've spoken to a lot of other women in the mining industry about, and that is that whole, can I be a girly girl? Can I, you know, wear my pink lipstick and go to the plant? I've actually always been that girly girl, always. Look, I would say, you know, there's a point where you just need to be honest with yourself. There comes a point where you just, you know, you need to sit down with yourself, have a conversation with yourself, and just be honest about who you are and what it is that you want. So, for example, so I'm a metallurgist by profession. That's what I studied. And when I obviously started off in my career, by default of that, I'm placed in the plants in production. And for a while, I knew that this is not, what I'm doing is not, it's not really, you know, satisfying me, if I can put it that way. And I knew that, you know, just the daily checking on times, did night shift produce, is day shift set up to produce? It wasn't exciting to me. And it took, when that happens, you get frustrated a lot, because you're somewhere where you feel discomfort about where you are, but because of, I don't know what to call it, whether it's sort of like a preset path, you continue thinking that it will get better. And the more that you continue, the more frustrating it gets, because the more you're not where you want to be. So for me, it just really took and yeah, I call it an honest conversation with myself, where I admitted and I accepted that I don't want to be in production. This is not for me. And I then had to define, so what is it that you want to do? And I remember having a conversation with someone, that was even before I actually moved into project management, which is my passion. That for me, I feel it's what I was made for. So before I moved into project management, still within the mine, I remember defining project management, but without really knowing that I was defining project management. So I remember saying to someone, you know, this bores me, what I'm doing. What I want to do is, I want to come in, solve a particular problem, finish it, move on to the next thing. You know, so I wanted that sort of the variety that project management gave me. So yeah, so you know, defining project management without even really knowing that I'm defining project management, you know, for me, that is an indication that I already knew that this is what I wanted to do without even really being exposed to it. And when the opportunity came, in fact, I think I'd say I created the opportunity, because by that time I had come to an understanding of where I don't want to be and where I want to be. So when a glimpse of an opportunity came, let me call it that, because I knew that this is where I want to be, I literally grabbed it with every limb that I have, and stuck to it. And basically that has been the trajectory of my career. I excelled in project management. Like I said, I'm passionate about it. While doing it, you know, I really understood the saying that if you're doing something that you love, you never have to work a day in your life. For me, that was project management. And that is, you know, even in co-founding the business is essentially a project management business. Yes, we offer technical services on the side, but when it started, it was project management, because that is who I am. So it's really just being honest with yourself, being bold. I refer to that a lot because it's really carried me through my career. Yeah, just be honest with yourself, you know, and follow your own path. Don't compare your path to someone else and then, you know, expect or assume that that is where you should go. And the sort of the root of all of that is just being honest with yourself.
You know, I think what you're saying here is so important, because we make this assumption that being authentic is really hard. But actually, when you are who you are, it takes a hell of a lot less energy than to be who you're not, to try and be whatever it is that you think you're supposed to be being. And one of the things that I have heard you say is you stepped away from the label of, I studied metallurgy, I am a metallurgist. And you looked at yourself from the perspective of, but what skills do I enjoy using? What do I like doing? I like problem solving. I like kind of figuring out the big picture and figuring out how to make this all work. And that for me is something that so often we get stuck thinking, I've studied this, I am a this is what I must do, and this is how I must define myself. And I really think part of owning your career is stepping away from boxing yourself into labels and starting to look at yourself as a collection of skills, emotions, thoughts, competencies, values, and figuring out how to show up as that collection of things, knowing that you can pivot in lots of different directions if you start to step away from just being a thing. And I do think it takes courage to do that, and it takes a lot of self-awareness. But I also think that once you allow yourself to do that, life becomes so much easier. Valencia, were you comfortable that you got the answer that you wanted and the guidance that you want?
Yes, 100%. Thanks, Briony. I'm actually just typing a comment here. For me, 2 key takeaways was having the honest conversation with ourselves. I think that's, you know, a good part of reflecting. And then the second thing, what I love, Thabile said about, you know, choosing a career path that is also authentic. I think we're speaking about being authentic in our roles. but why shouldn't our roles also be authentic? Like you mentioned, it should be something that suits us, and it's okay if it's different from what other people are doing. So yeah, I enjoyed hearing about that. Thanks, ladies.
Fantastic, thank you. Any other questions from people in the room? Valencia's been very brave to ask a question. I'm wondering if anybody else wants to ask, or we'll continue as we are. Okay, nobody's jumping up. So I want to ask Murendeni a question. Working in the environmental field, Murendeni, in the mining industry, I think is quite a tough place to be. You're not in production, you're not bringing in money, you're not making money. In fact, the perception is that you're costing money. And so you're almost a grudge purchase. And I'm wondering how you've built credibility in your work, in your career, in environmental management, in the mining industry, where for a very long time, every time you kind of step onto site as an environmental person, people go, oh God, somebody's here telling us what we're doing wrong, not telling us what we're doing right. Murendeni, are you there?
Yes, I'm just laughing at your question. You know what we've always been compared to? It says that as support services in the mining field, it's like in a relationship, you've got the man who's the provider and the woman who supports services who's always taking the money. So that's quite a common thing you have to deal with on a regular basis. But it comes down to knowing yourself and not trying to fit in the boys' club. I think where most people get it wrong is everybody always thinks aggression is the key, which is not always the case, especially when you are in support services. So that's where you now need to also try and think outside the box and tap into some other skills as well to help you get ahead. Communication skills, it's first and foremost. So the perception is in mining, you always have to be aggressive and screaming. What I found out, what worked for me, I'm a very petite person. I'm not a loud person at all. So it's just having to use the right words at the right time. And that has always worked. Like you need to get to a point where people calm down and they actually listen to what you're saying. So just having the right communication skills have worked. Also, one thing that works is understanding people, understanding their emotions. There's always a time and a place for everything. So you need to understand different people, understand their emotions, understand how they react. There are people who, if you approach them in front of a crowd, they will actually put on a performance for you. So there are certain people you need to know, if I need to approach this person, what is the right time for this person? Is it when they're hungry? Are they a morning person? Are they an afternoon person? So it's those little skills that we tend to forget that actually become quite effective. And also just being, I wouldn't call it manipulative, but you need to know how to approach situation. You need to know how to word your case. You need to actually present a business case with everything that you do. So we always think that support services or environment per se is not necessarily linked to the core business, but it actually is. So you always need to find a way to translate what you want into a language that your recipient understands. So if I'm gonna raise something, I need to find a way to translate it into how then does it affect you, and how does it impact you, and how does it benefit you? So each and everything you do, it needs to be packaged as a business case to convince the next person, and you need to know how to communicate. So I found that what has worked is actually tapping into the softer skills and understanding the human being and how they think and how to best get them to do what you want them to do without the aggression. So that has been an approach that has actually worked for me in the career.
Did that come naturally to you, or did something happen where you suddenly realized I need to change my tactics?
It's something that I realized quite earlier on when I entered the mining industry. Like I always say, I'm petite, so I always fall into that perception of unconscious biasness, wherein the moment people see you already, they think, oh, you're an intern. So to a point where I got comfortable during COVID, wherein I speak to people via Teams and you don't even get to see me. I got much positive responses then. And then the moment they see you, it's like, what's this tiny person gonna tell me? So it's something that entering the mining space with my physical build, also now not just that, being a female, being a Black female, being in support services, it's like all the odds were just against me. So I had to find how then do I make it work for me in this tough industry. So that's something that I had to learn when I first entered in order to succeed.
Fantastic. Thank you, Randy. I really appreciate that. Okay, so we've got a question here from Megan. Megan, you're very welcome to ask it on screen, or I can read it out of the chat box for you. Would you like to come on screen and ask your question?
Sure. Give me 1 second. Okay. My question was just, how do we prevent ourselves from being boxed in to a specific field or sector, especially when your company makes it known that the company doesn't need you elsewhere, and so they are not going to afford you the opportunity to branch out? It wasn't directly specific though.
Okay, so anybody from our panel who wants to answer that? Randy is first off the mute button.
Yeah, no, I think it's quite an important question that, yeah, I've asked myself so many times. So if I were to relate it back to myself, the position that I hold now, corporate water specialist, it's actually a position that didn't exist before. So I'm the first person to actually hold that position. So what's important is always understanding the trends, the industry we're in. You need to understand the trends of where the company is headed. You need to understand what's coming and start prepping yourself for that. So for me, I was based at operations. I was an environmental manager, but I always felt that I need to step out of that role. And my interest was entering the sustainable development realm. So I started now interacting and building myself for a role that didn't even exist, because that's where the company was headed. So by the time the company moves in that direction, you are actually prepared. So we know that we are always revolving as an industry. The positions we have now are not going to be positions we'll have in the future. Sometimes it's like a blank screen. You can't always predict what's going to happen. But I believe that looking at the trends and understanding where company is going, it also helps you prepare in advance. It might not necessarily happen in that specific company, but in the same industry, you will then be relevant when the changes do happen.
Such an important point around remaining relevant and being able to anticipate change. And I think it's something that none of us really anticipated when COVID came along. We didn't know how rapidly the world would change and how some professions just disappeared and the way we work changed. And I think it's a huge lesson to a lot of us to look forward into the future, to look at our industry, to be analyzing trends, to be starting to get a sense of what do I need to do now in order to remain relevant, not just next year, but in the next 5 years and 10 years. 𝗕𝗿𝗄, you've got your hand up, so I'm guessing you want to answer Megan's question too.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Randy said, and I wanted to add that so I can understand the complexity and the difficulty that comes with an organization wanting you to be in a certain role and you wanting to be in a different role, and just how the difficulty that comes with that. So what I wanted to add is, so if you're clear on where it is that you want to go, you'll find that you're able to create opportunities. You're able to identify and you're able to create opportunities. So that awareness is important, and that sort of constantly seeking for a way to move into where you want to go is important. And then also just realizing, like Randy said, that it might not necessarily happen in the organization that you're in. Being open to the fact that you might have to move out of there to move into the position that you want to move into. And maybe in that time, because again, it's not always immediate, in that time, you know, build whatever it is, whatever capacity you need while you're in the position that you're in, build a capacity that you will need to get to the position that you want to get to. Thank you.
Thanks, Thabile. Shareen, your hand's up as well. This is definitely a question that's suddenly getting interest.
Oh, actually, Thabile actually said what I wanted to say, but just to reflect on my own story. So I think for me, I think also it's a thing of being in that one position for long. You feel like no one is seeing you. So I've went through the same thing that, listen, I've been doing this for so long. Why am I not going up? Why am I not moving? So I decided to rather focus my energy and strength on getting my mining tickets, you know, just silently so that when a position comes, everybody's going to be shocked. When did she do this? So I know it feels very bad. It's painful to be in that corner. You feel like no one is looking at you. You're just literally just working so hard, but you're not going anywhere. So I remember this other lady, 𝗕𝗹𝗓 once said to us, I think she's with Anglo. She said that you need to have a 5-year flight plan. You know, you need to stand at a point where you need to look up and say, in 5 years, I want to be a mine manager. But what am I doing now to get there, right? It might not be that you get promoted, but it might be that I need to get these certain skills. I need to get these tickets, right? So even in that boxed up place that you're in, you need to actually say, this is where I want to go. This is what I need, right? Even if no one is looking at you, you just need to do it for yourself. I think that's from me, Briony.
Thanks. I absolutely appreciate that. And I really like the point of, what do I need to do today in order to be where I want to be in 5 years' time? Recognizing that might require me to leave my company. It might require me to do all sorts of things, to invest in myself so that I can be where I want to be. And I think the important point is companies own our jobs, but we own our careers. And if we only look at ourselves as the job that we're in, we're not taking ownership of our careers. We've really got to look at ourselves as if we are the product, and the product goes where we take it. And whatever we invest into the product to make it better and better goes with us. So if you want to be in a particular place, it doesn't mean that it's up to anybody else other than you to make it happen. And you need to drive that. So sure, if your company doesn't want you to be in a particular place because they don't value that, that's absolutely fine. Start looking at all the other ways in which you can get into that particular position elsewhere. Or like Randy did, how can you participate in creating that position by starting to build a business case for, this is coming in the future and we need as an organization to start looking at this now, and this is the role I want to take in this. Pity, we need to hear your voice, and I think one of the things that really strikes me about how you take ownership of your career is that you don't wait for people to advocate for you. You advocate for yourself. And I remember one of the things that we had a conversation about a couple years ago was how you nominated yourself for various different awards. And it was the first time I'd ever heard anybody say, but I wanted to put myself forward, so I nominated myself. And I thought it was a wonderful and brave and courageous way of saying, I know my worth and I want the world to know my worth. And Pity, I wonder if you want to talk to us a little bit about that, because I think a lot of people struggle to advocate and sponsor themselves. So how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, so that's true, Briony. So I believe that if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will. You know, you need to have confidence, absolute confidence in yourself. And that doesn't happen overnight either. It's something that you build onto, and it's something that you have to get to a certain stage that you believe that what I'm doing is right and I'm doing the best I can. And if you don't advocate for yourself, nobody else will. Everybody else is busy doing their own thing, working as hard as they possibly can. And no one looks out for you if you don't look out for yourself. And there's a saying that says, if it's going to be, it has to be me. If something has to happen, you gotta make it happen. And that's my absolute motto, you know. If it's going to be, it has to be me. I'm the one who is in charge of my career. I'm the one who is in charge of what has to happen to me. I'm not there to allow people to come into my space and decide what needs to happen to my career. So I go out, I take charge, and I put myself out there. And it's not always received positively. And you sometimes do get negative feedback, which is also good. Sometimes you need to reflect as well and see what is it that I can improve on, because through improvement we grow. So when you put yourself out there, there's always a positive and a negative, and one should be able to deal with both, because that's how you grow. And if you, like myself, I nominated myself for a couple of things, and the Rising Star Awards, for instance, the process of getting to the finals was so intense, and I learned so much through that process. I learned so much about myself as well through that process, something that nobody could have taught me, or something that I couldn't have learned if I had sat in my corner and did my job as I'm expected to, you know. So I always look out for learning opportunities. I always look out for opportunities that will assist me in my growth path and essentially get me to where I want to be. And that's taking complete control of your career. As you say, that your career is your business, you know, making it my business to take care of my career, my image, my professionalism, how I get portrayed. That's entirely up to me, and I take full control of it.
And as a result, people know that you exist. And not just people in the mining industry, not just people in your company, people in a lot of different industries. And that's maybe just one more thing that you can elaborate on is how it's built your network by putting yourself forward for these various different things.
Sure. It has built my network tremendously. I mean, from just being someone who was just a mere graduate, working up the ranks, to actually being recognized when you get to certain platforms, and having networks that you can leverage on, because that's the whole reason why we network, right? So that you can leverage on those networks when you need it. So it does help putting yourself out there, because people start recognizing you when you also need something. You end up building networks strong enough for you to be able to leverage on it, which is essentially very important, because we don't go through life all by ourselves. At some point, you're going to need something from someone in your career or any other facet of your life. So it really does help having a broad network, and not just a network, but people that you can actually leverage on. Yeah.
Thank you.
If I may come in there, she mentioned something about you need to be confident. Building confidence for many of us, and I speak for our mentees as well, we have seen quite a number of times. A lack of self-confidence comes in many shapes and form, and learning how to build that confidence is it's an ongoing project for many of us, and we are all a work in progress, and it's not so easy when we talk of confidence. What tips can you give for to a number of us on how do they learn to build that confidence without taking low on themselves and without shutting themselves up?
I think one of the things is we really need to stop being so hard on ourselves. Sometimes we think that we're not good enough when we're actually doing really great, you know, and not compare ourselves with what someone else has achieved, because there's always going to be someone who's better than you. I mean, that's life. But not being so hard on ourselves, actually appreciating who you are and appreciating the little wins that you have achieved, because every little win is a win, regardless of how small it is, and celebrating that win, regardless of how small it is, because to you it is a win, whether it's minute to someone else, but to you it is a win. So identify the things that you are good at and the things that you makes you feel good when you do it, whether it's technically at work, you're technically very strong, or you're very good with people. Identify it and work on it and celebrate it, because nobody else is going to celebrate it. Nobody else is going to keep on patting you on the back and saying, oh, you're doing so great. You just need to identify that I am actually good at what I'm doing. And you celebrate it and you highlight it, and you make sure that people know that that is what you're good at. So that when they need someone with that specific skill, they know where to get it. You know, sometimes it's just talking. Sometimes people might say that you talk too much, or you forever talking about yourself, but someone out there will hear what you're saying, and when they need a speaker somewhere, they might have you in mind. So identify what it is that you're good at and celebrate it and work on it and make sure that you do it very well, so that you can get celebrated, and you celebrate yourself as well for what it is that you're good at.
Lovely answer. I don't think we celebrate ourselves nearly enough. I want to add to that though, because on the other end of confidence is vulnerability. And in order to get closer to confidence, you have to be vulnerable. You have to allow yourself to make mistakes. So that means you've got to take risks. You've got to try things. You've got to get out of your comfort zone. You have to allow yourself to look like a fool by asking a question that maybe is obvious, or putting yourself forward for something that maybe you're not ready for yet. You've got to allow yourself to ask for help, to ask questions, to say that you don't know something, because when we pretend that we know things, we don't learn. But the moment we make ourselves vulnerable enough to say, this is what I know and this is what I don't know, and I'm taking a risk to learn more, that's when we start to build our confidence. And if you think about anything that you've learned and you've mastered over the last 10 years, when you first started, you weren't confident in doing it, but you put yourself out there and you went through a process of trying things, getting it wrong, improving on it, doing it again, until now, where you're doing things without even thinking about it. That's confidence, is being able to do things without even really having to think too hard about it. So what I want to encourage you to think about is confidence doesn't just happen. Confidence comes through the process of making yourself vulnerable and intentionally putting yourself out there. We've got a couple questions here, and we've also only got 15 minutes left. So, Masachaba, how would you advise someone who would like to gain workplace experience within the mining industry? What route should someone take in that regard? Let us ask Shareen to give some thoughts on that.
Yeah, for me, I think it's easier for some to actually infiltrate the mining industry. So like myself, I had a bursary with then it was BHP Billiton, then South Day 2, then Seriti. So for me, it was easier because they were sponsoring me. So immediately after graduation, I fell into their program. So I also get these requests a lot to say, how can I join the mining industry? What do I need to do? Unfortunately, we need to tell someone that it's not necessarily that you need to fall into a graduate program, right? So even if it's an internship, a 6 months internship, just to get into the industry, you can take it from there. It's very difficult to get in if you don't have a sponsor from varsity. But every little opportunity that comes your way, just take it, because in my position, I cannot really say, I'll assist you, I'll get you in. It's very difficult. So even if it's an internship, just to get your blasting ticket, do it, you know? Yeah, it's I don't want to lie, Briony. There's a lot of graduates who are sitting outside the industry, you know, wanting this opportunity as well. So any little thing, any little opportunity that comes your way, just take it, and then you will build from there, you know. I have a lot of mine engineering graduates friends who didn't have sponsors, who didn't fall into a graduate program. So they got a 12 months internship, got their blasting ticket, and they sat at home, then applied for a miner's position, they started from there. So any little opportunity that comes your way, just take it and you'll grow from there. Yeah.
Thanks, Shareen. 𝗪𝗶𝗠𝗦𝗔's got a question here. How do you ensure that you are viewed as a member of the team and not just a trainee anymore? So after transitioning from a graduate program to an employee. Rendy, maybe you want to ask that. You were an intern at one stage. How did you shift out of being an intern and into being a fully fledged member of the team?
Okay, let me not answer that based on my story, because mine was quite a daring one. I wouldn't want to give somebody quite false advice. But the advice I always gave the interns I had is, when you're an intern, do not work like an intern. You need to work for that entry position you are looking for. Then you need to fill that gap so that by the time your internship is done, your absence will be felt. And that's when now the motivation starts coming in. So do not perform as per your current position, but perform for the next position. And that's how you get noticed. And that's when people see that you are actually ready for that position.
Yeah, act as if you already are. Thank you, Rendy. Shoki's got a question here for Thabile. What inspired you to start your own business as opposed to continuing to be an employee? What was the push to be an entrepreneur?
Okay, so I had raised my hand to just add on to the previous question. My experience was there needs to be a mindset shift within yourself as the graduate who's now transitioned to be part of the team, because how you carry yourself determines how people view you or see you. Okay, then Shoki's question. It came from a place of wanting to do more with what I was passionate about. It was just a feeling of where I was at the time was just not enough. I wanted to do more. I was very aware of the fact that I'm a very hardworking individual, extremely. And I wanted to use that more to benefit as many people as I could. And I think the only thing that made sense was to not be confined to a particular organization, but to have reach you know, to many organizations at the same time and many people at the same time. Yeah, so I think it's just my drive of just, you know, just always wanting to push myself a step further, always wanting more, putting myself out there. Yeah, I hope that answers you, Shoki.
Thanks, Thabile. Two final questions, and maybe these can be for Phitsy and Shareen. So Emily asks, how do you deal with superiors that are always taking credit for your work and never give you an opportunity to shine? And then there was another question. Evelyn has asked, what if you know where you want to go, but you don't have the resources to get there? So Phitsy and Shareen, maybe you can help answer those two questions, and you can pick whichever one you want to answer, or both.
Okay, I'll attempt the second one. That's the one I remember. So how do you get to where you want to go without the resources? Am I right, Briony?
Yeah.
If you don't have the resources. Okay, so I think it's all dependent on what it is that you want to do. There's so much available out there. If the resources, you mean through education, there's a lot of education that's available out there that you can reach out to. That doesn't necessarily require funding, if I can put it that way. There's a lot of free stuff that you can get online to expand yourself and to create your own sort of resources out of there. So the internet, you have the internet to your disposal, that you can research and sort of source resources outside of your company, because your company won't always have the resources that you need in order for you to get to where you want to go. So one just has to go out there and search, and I believe the resources will somehow become available to you. There's a lot out there that does not necessarily cost monetary cost an element to it. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Shareen, do you want to add to that?
I think I'll just go straight to the first question. Yeah, so for me, I think it actually happens a lot to graduates who just came into the industry, right? So normally what happens is that you get to do the dirty work, right? But your superior supervisor shines for it, right? Unfortunately, it happens, and it happens a lot to many of us, right? But through that, just take it that you are learning. You know, you cannot really call out your superior or your supervisor to say, hey, but I did that. You know, just take it as that you are learning the processes. You know, you might be doing a manager's job. You know, you are actually preparing for when you are a manager, right? So it seems bad. You know, it seems like you're not getting recognition for what you did, but take it as a learning that, listen, I'm learning for the next position, or I'm learning how to do 1, 2, 3, right? So that you actually build your craft going forward. You know, it's not that every day that the manager is going to say, actually, this is by the mining intern, you know, and we celebrate you. It hardly happens, because that person, it's their job. So they don't want someone else taking their shine as much as they're taking yours. Right, so just take it as a learning and continue adding into your craft. It might seem as if you're doing someone's work, or you are actually being pushed in a corner, but just keep on doing that, keep learning. And then when the opportunity arises to actually occupy a bigger position, you are now skilled, or you have the tools to actually do the work.
Great answer.
Thank you.
And one day when you're in the supervisor or leader or manager position, remember what it felt like not being acknowledged, and acknowledge the people beneath you. So maybe be the change that you want as opposed to worrying about it right now. On Evelyn's question, I also want to say education is not the only way to get ahead. And 𝗵𝗴 is absolutely right. There are lots of free resources out there, but I think other things are just as important. One, building your network, really making sure that you are talking to people about what it is that you're trying to do and asking for help where you can, but also serving your network, being as valuable as you possibly can be in your network, helping others so that you build up the social capital to be able to ask for what you need. And if you're not telling people what you're trying to do, and Evelyn, I've heard you in several different forums now saying this is what I want to do. So I know that. And when I find an opportunity, I'm definitely going to tell you about it. But my point is, I think you need to be telling everybody that you encounter, this is what I'm trying to do. This is how I'm trying to get there. This is what I've already done to get there. Can you put me in contact with someone? Do you know someone who has this opportunity? What can I do that's going to help build my experience to eventually get there? And keep on advocating for yourself as if you are trying to sell a product or a service. 𝗕𝗵𝗴, you've got your hand up. There's one more question in the chat. We need to wrap up. So 𝗕𝗵𝗴, you may ask a question, make a comment, and come online quickly. There we go.
Evening, everyone. I have a question for Thabile. Hi, Thabile, it's 𝗕𝗵𝗴. I wanted to ask, how do you ensure you have diversity in your company? Because looking at the name of your company, 𝗕𝗵𝗶, it looks like it caters for the minority, which in the industry, in the engineering space, it's us women who are the minority. So how do you ensure that you balance out diversity and inclusion in your company to make sure that people of different backgrounds, religion, gender, they're all catered for?
Yeah, so the name of our organization, you're quite right. So it literally translates to Trust Women in English. And that is not to segregate. It speaks more to, you know, the driving force behind the organization being women, and not necessarily the employees of the organization being women only. So diversity is you know, key to every organization. Inclusion is key to every organization, and the way to go about it is really to be intentional about it. It's not something that just happens. It's something that you have to intentionally seek for. It's something that you have to intentionally put, you know, plans into place for. So yeah, my answer to you would be that it's how we go about it is that we are intentional about it. We understand that, you know, variety, we understand that diversity creates almost the output from a team that is diverse is so much more and is so much more valuable than the output from a team that is just, you know, homogeneous, where everyone is just the same. So that we understand very, very clearly. And like I said, we are intentional about ensuring diversity in our teams.
Thanks, Thabile. Okay, so final question in the chat is from 𝗪𝗶𝗴, and she's asked, what are some of the key skills that you have seen and know to be beneficial for one who's entering the mining industry? And this is around especially remaining relevant after COVID. So I'm going to ask each of our panelists in 1 or 2 words, so not full sentences, to say what is a key skill that you think a young professional coming into the mining industry or already in the mining industry has to be developing now so that they remain relevant in the future? Птьи, I'm looking at you, so would you like to answer, and then we'll move along each of the panelists?
Sure. I think one of the skills that has come up very prominently is managing the softer skills. You know, it's no longer about what people, the output of what people can do, but also about people's emotional well-being and people's mental health, and being able, as a leader, being able to manage both outcomes and not just being one way orientated in terms of what outcome a person can deliver, but what is the mental state of that person? Are they in a mental state that's good enough for them to deliver what you want them to deliver? And being able to connect with people on a personal level, so that you can, at the end of the day, get the best productivity out of someone.
Thanks, Птьи. Thabile?
I would say agility, be adaptable.
Fantastic. Shareen?
From the space that I've been in, I'd say it's not about me, it's about us. It just, at the end of the day, it was about how efficient we can work together in our separate corners. So it's actually, all I want to say is that it's about us.
Okay, so build relationships, make it about the team. Randy? Murendeni, are you there? Okay, I think we might have lost Murendeni. I want to say, make sure that you are impeccable at the technical work that you do, that you build self-awareness, and that you nurture your networks. Those are, for me, some of the most important things. Being good at what you do goes without saying. But as pretty much everybody else here has said, you are part of a team, build the relationship, communicate, step into the language of the people that you're trying to influence and persuade. Really build up your soft skills in immense detail. And I think the other part of it is make sure that you are tech savvy. If going into the next 10 years, you are not technology savvy, if you are not able to write code, to work well with computers, to deal with artificial intelligence, to interrogate data, you're going to be losing out on a lot of the skills that are going to be making people relevant, not just in the future, but now as well. So it's a combination of soft skills and technological and data and AI skills that I think are the most important ones to be focusing on. We have run out of time. I think this has been a great session. I want to thank everybody that's joined us, and I want to ask Humbulani to wrap us up, thank our panelists, and close us out.
Thank you, Briony. What an interesting evening we have had. I think a lot of us have learned quite a lot. Thank you so much to each and every one of you. The panelists, you've been great. We have learned quite a lot from you. As from me, my takeaway for the evening was that in each and everything that I do, I need to have a packaged business case, which I'm going to start exercising as of as of tonight. I'm sure it's going to help me going forward, and I'm sure a whole lot of us have learned a lot of things. There were pearls of wisdom that were shared. Thank you so much. May we have great evenings, and may everything that we have learned, may we put it in good use, and let us go there and be bold, be brave, and be ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Humbulani, and Птьи, Randy, Thabile, and Shareen. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your experiences with us. And to our participants, if you've gained value from this, please write on LinkedIn how much value you got from the session, what you learned. and really just share with your network that this video will be available tomorrow as well. I hope you've all got something out of this evening. I think we all have. And join us again next month. We're going to be doing another session next month focusing on competence. So for those of you who've asked some questions about skills and competence, we're going to be digging even deeper into that next month. Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you
Are we
so
not going to have a
much.
treat for the day?
Oh my God,
Thank
let's do
you.
a photo. All right. If you are still here, let's do a screenshot quickly. Why don't you put your videos on if you're still here? And maybe seeing as this is a video, let's be really noisy in saying goodbye and saying thank you to our panelists. Okay, just waiting for a few more videos to come on. Yay, we get to see beautiful women. And some people are disappearing, so I'm going to take a first screenshot. Let's come off mute. Let's be noisy. Let's say thank you to our panelists. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
I need to do one more. Screenshot. Just in case.
Actually,
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Okay, I'm ending the session. Goodbye. Thank you for joining us.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.